All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for making it in and finding a parking space. We believe that others may still be joining us as they're driving around looking for parking spaces. I'm going to call our meeting to order. A few minutes late because of that. I was so proud in the minutes last time that it was called to order right on time. So we'll be closer to it perhaps next time, and maybe we'll clear out some parking spaces or something, right? Elizabeth, work your magic.
Do my best.
All right, so let's do roll call.
Forward, Dr. Fuller,
Here.
Ashley Jackson. She's gonna be joining us via Zoom. Eddie Mesh.
Here.
Dr. O'Rourke. Here. Dr. Cassidy. Here. Tommy Smith.
Here.
Dr. Tyrone.
Here.
Dr. Gabrecius. Gonna correct me one day to make sure I say your name correct. Dawn Harris. Beth Alford. Here. Gina Doucette. Here. Dr. McLean.
Present.
Dr. Palermo. She said she'd be unable to join. Dr. Gladden.
Here.
Kenny Herbal.
Here.
Trey Roche.
Here.
Pete Williams. Dr. Bryant. Desiree Thomas. Nikki Norton. Here. We have a form.
Very good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. You have minutes in your packet from our previous meeting, which was August the 27th. Make a motion to approve the minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Are there any questions? Anyone opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Elizabeth, let's rolling on the agenda.
Yeah, so today we have representatives from each of our optional retirement plan vendors. We have TIAA, Voya, and Corbridge are all here to speak both to the work that they do as well as provide any information and answer any questions you may have related to the items put forth on our House Resolution 143. So I'm going to turn it over first to TIA, to Karen. Like to start.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I didn't have a speaker or a microphone, but I generally talk pretty loud. So thank you so much. My name is Karen Locke, and I'm the Managing Director in Government Relations for TIAA. Thank you very much, Dr. McLean, Elizabeth, and the members of the task force for your time today. What I want to do is to kind of level set what my testimony is going to be about and what is not going to be about. So our expertise is a vendor in the optional retirement plan, primarily in the retirement space for nonprofits, public sector, higher ed. So that's what we do, and we have been doing that for close to 110 years. What we will not be talking about is kind of the practicalities or the pros and cons of the phased retirement plan, because generally that's a policy decision that we leave to leaders like yourself, legislature, the executive branch. We're the worker bees, for a lack of a better word. We take what you hand to us, and then we try to make it as efficient, cost-wise, and efficient for process. So I just want to level set. What I'm doing today is really repeating the testimony, or kind of repeating the testimony that we did last year, talking about plan design as it relates to the optional retirement plan. So because most of you are new and didn't have the benefit of hearing from the expert that we brought forth, except for Gina and maybe just a couple of other people, the majority of you are new to the committee. So what we wanted to do is to kind of show you what best practices are so that you're in a better position to consider what you want to ask from the legislature as a result of this task force. So could we switch to the next slide? So do that. That's okay. Just by way of background, like I mentioned, we were created in 1918. And so as a result of that, we've had since 1980, 18 a single purpose to deliver financial security through lifetime income in retirement. And we have been doing that for, oh, I don't know, we started with 1 million and now we have 1.4 trillion. So we're doing pretty well for ourselves, and we do that on behalf of 5 million participants. We don't call them clients because we operate like a nonprofit. So whatever our money that we make goes back to our clients. So they're almost like a participant in a plan. And so since we've been created, we have delivered over $550 billion in lifetime income payments. So think of those as lifetime paychecks, the way you would in a pension fund. And for that, we have about 7,000 retirement plans, and we primarily focus in the higher ed side, which is why we are here today as one of the vendors. And you have some other amazing vendors that we work with. We have a great deal of respect for the other vendors because we see each other quite often. So moving on to the next slide. So this is our presence in Louisiana, just to kind of give you a background. We have been in Louisiana for over 100 years at Tulane University, dating back to 1921. And then with TRSL since 1990, and as well as many other higher education institutions. In the state, we manage about $4.6 billion for a little over 30,000 participants or clients, depending on how you like to say it. And as I mentioned, we are created to provide lifetime income, but as you can tell, we actually have 2 annuitants who are over 100 years old, and we're really proud of that. Whenever we get one of those, our CEO writes a letter congratulating, they get like balloons. It's a really fun time for us when we see that. So then we can move on to the next slide. So now I want to talk to you about kind of the general overview so that you have a sense of what the marketplace looks like. Most importantly, I don't want to go through every single bullet because you have other speakers. I do want to draw your attention to the general trend, and that is the portability and requirement. If you look down on the general trend under median tenure, that is data from the Department of Labor that shows that an average, entrant into the workforce stays basically in their job, their first job, for 6.3 years, which is the importance of the portability because they're probably not going to vest. And so what you really want is for those new employees coming in to be able to continue to save from the jump all the way until they retire so that they have sufficient money to retire. And that's kind of the important aspect of that particular slide. Worker sentiment, I'm sure you're hearing it, otherwise you would not be standing here today or sitting here, that folks just don't feel like they're saving sufficiently. And what they need to do is to start thinking earlier, saving earlier, and then thinking about what they need to have as a savings rate, which is going to be the most important aspect of my testimony today, is why the participants in this plan needs to have an increase in the savings rate. And that was discussed last year, and I believe it was actually one of your recommendations, but somehow, because of the budgetary constraints, we weren't able to get there. But what I want to share with you is that the last task force asked us to prepare a slide comparing all the SEC schools so that you know who your competition is and what they're offering so that you can better attract and retain talent. So let's move on to the, and why is lifetime income important? So as we think about the goal of somebody who is moving from one job to another, why is the lifetime income component so important? Is because you want them to have some level of guaranteed payment at the end of their career. Similar to what a pension does, having a lifetime payment at the end so that at a minimum you have some level of dignified retirement. You can do more and save more and take that money to do a managed account the way you want to, but setting aside a certain amount that you know will come in as a paycheck. So that is something that we advocate for, and that is one element that is missing from TRSL's current investment lineup. But I also, that will be apparent on the next slide that that's also an outlier for all the SEC schools. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, this is the one that was asked of us to kind of develop, and I want to start kind of to show you what each one of the different shading is. The lighter blue is the employee contribution. The lighter shade is the employer contribution. The kind of a little bit darker is the employee contribution. And as you can see on there, we tried to put all the SEC schools. The reason why Bama and Georgia, not every school is listed on there is because their contribution rates are similar. So I didn't need to repeat myself for Alabama, all the Alabama publics as well as all the Alabamas in Georgia. So I want to draw your attention to the top number. So Louisiana's the second to the left. And it shows that you're at 14.2% contribution rate. And you may take great comfort in seeing, oh, that's pretty consistent with everyone else. The difference, of course, here is the teachers in Louisiana, they're under TRSL, do not have Social Security. So that's why I put the little asterisk there. Everybody else does. So you have that extra layer of comfort that is being paid into Social Security. So it gives you almost a little false sense of hope that 14.2 is great, when in fact, you're actually lagging behind because you're not paying into Social Security for those educators. And that's a problem because if you're thinking about it from recruitment and retention purposes, this is who you're competing with. Are there other schools that have less? Yes, but they also have Social Security. So that is, I think, one of the major reasons why we would advocate and support the passage of legislation that increase your current contribution rate from 6.2 to 8. And this is important because what the best practices in retirement is to replace your income between 70 to 80%. That's about how much you need. What you're currently making, you want to be able to be at 70 to 80%. Well, that 70 to 80% is actually supposed to come from all your retirement, right? So your actual retirement accounts as well as Social Security. So you don't have that 70 to 80 if you don't have Social Security. You now need to make up 100% of it all on your own. So this is, I think, one of the biggest talking points that was asked of us last year. And I want to share that with you so you understand when you're considering your decision making on what you want to come out of this task force, to remember this little chart here. And honestly, that is really all I have because, like I said, we're not taking a position on the phased retirement because we really just operate the plan and help you facilitate the working of the actual plan, but we don't really get involved in the decision-making of the phased retirement. So with that, I will take questions if you have any, and if not, I'll turn it over to my colleagues from Corbridge and Boya.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Go back to the previous presentation.
Is it
So-
this slide?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
The percentages, not Louisiana, but the other schools, is the employer contribution to Social Security in those numbers?
No,
Other steps?
no, those are not, because those are strictly what the employers are paying into.
Right, excluding.
Yeah.
The amount that they pay for salaries.
So, I mean, there's definitely some very rich states like Mississippi, but there's, they have different considerations than University of Texas and Louisiana. Every state has different recruitment and retention challenges and pluses and minuses. So I don't want to sit here and tell you, oh, this one is better because of X, Y, and Z. I think the key for you to take away is that the outlier is your numbers may look good, but in fact, you're actually lagging behind because of because you don't have Social Security. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your time, and please forgive me, but I have to dash to go catch a plane. But Kevin Hayes, who is one of our colleagues here, lives in the state, and he'll be sticking around. So if you have any questions for me or for the company, please feel free to pass it on to him, and I'll make sure that you have my phone number and email if you want to find me. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate your time. Okay, next we have Voya Financial, Danielle Greenlee. See how this so.
Good morning. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you having us and being able to come up here and just kind of share some insights with you, provide you a little bit of information that and studies that we've done over the years, similar to what Karen mentioned. I'm not here to say what you should or shouldn't do, right? I'm here to be the tool and the resource for you to provide the education and the information for all of the employees at all of your individual universities. So with that, if we want to go ahead and go to the next slide, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time, and you guys are all able to hear me, right? Okay, good. I tend to project, but I just wanted to make sure. I thought we'd level set with a little bit about what current state is, right? So today you have two distinct plans. You've got the defined benefit plan through Teachers Retirement System, and then you also have the optional retirement plan that myself and my colleagues offer to the employees. What's nice about that is that plan is competitive. As you saw with Karen's slides previously, you know, it is competitive from just the individual plan perspective itself, right? But we're going to talk about some opportunities there as well. In addition to that, your Louisiana faculty and staff do have the opportunity to supplement their income as well in some of the voluntary plans that are individually offered at each of your universities or each of your colleges. The real opportunity, and I know Karen mentioned this as well, is that Social Security. The fact that your teachers are not paying into Social Security puts them at a clear disadvantage, right? So they're not having that additional income to be able to get to that 70 to 80% of their income in retirement, and looking at tools and resources that we can do to help them to offset that, or if there's a way to get into Social Security, you know, looking at those opportunities as well. So with that, rather than spending a lot of time on what you guys have today, we did a study that looked, and it was in correlation with both Voya Cares and Easter Seals. And what we did is we looked at two different groups. We looked at groups that had 50% of it were 50 plus, and they had previously retired, but then went back to work. We had the other 50% of the study were people that were 65 or older and just continued to work. So they never actually retired or anything. They just continued to work. You know, their plan may be to retire at 70 or potentially not retire and just continue to work ongoing throughout the rest of their lifetime. We thought this kind of really correlated with what the task force is looking for with respect to understanding, you know, what opportunities there are for a phased retirement. You know, if instead of people retiring immediately, they retire over time, maybe gradually reduce their workload, share that knowledge, be able to support all of your new employees that are coming on as well. So as you can see in this next chart here that we've got, over on the left side of the screen, in your 20 to 24, your 20 to 25 to 34 year range, you can kind of see that there was almost an exodus from the workforce, especially following COVID-19, the pandemic, a lot of stuff going on over the last 5 years. You're starting to really see people dropping out of the workforce. You're also starting to see maybe more of a drop in productivity. We're seeing people being a little less engaging, maybe not giving it their full 100%. But then over on the right-hand side, the orange box is really kind of looking at that group that we're talking about today, right? The people that are nearing retirement or that may be in that traditional retirement age. And what opportunities are there that rather than having them, quote, retire on time, can we do to encourage continued improvement? You know, taking advantage of that investment that you guys have provided to them over the years, being able to look at the experience, the knowledge that those individuals have, and that capacity for them to be able to train and mentor your next generations as well. Looking at this is from the US Bureau of Labor. And you can see in that 65 to 74 group range, by the year 2030, it's anticipated that 32% of those people that age will still be working. If we continue to the next slide, we really kind of broke down the group even further. So we found in all of our study and in the conversations that we had with individuals that there were really 4 primary kind of groups of people that were extending their career. The first group are those that just want to work. So you got about 29%. And these are the people that, they just wanted purpose. They wanted to keep their minds active. They just really wanted to keep working. The next group was kind of a similar range, but a little bit slightly different. So 22% was really what we called part of the plan. So they had previously retired from one position, but they weren't ready to really, quote, quit working, right? Maybe they retired at 50, but they still wanted to be able, they were still young, they're still agile, they still want to be able to continue to work. So you have a lot of folks in that group. In addition to that, we found that some of those people were really just wanting to, continue to be able to save for retirement as well. They're not ready to retire just yet. The next 2 groups are kind of in that situation where they're a little more concerned. So you had 31% that were worriers. These folks were, more concerned about the unexpected expenses. They're, wanting to make sure that they have enough money. They're not sure they're at that position yet, so they're worrying a little bit more about it. And then the last group, they wanted to retire, right? But they just don't have enough money saved to be able to do that and live comfortably on what they have. As we proceed to the next slide, I'm not going to go through all of this particular slide, but I want you to know that this just broke down that group of individuals and what was their motivation to really continue to work. What was the major reason that they were looking at it? I did kind of bold some of the different sections too, just to kind of illustrate what we just talked about in some of that motivation. As we proceed to the next slide, this really talks a little bit overarching the entire group. What was their motivation to work past retirement? The vast majority of it really comes down to that, they work because they can or because they want to. The top 3 financial reasons that folks really continued working past retirement to maintain their current lifestyle, to prepare for, inflation or increased cost of living, and then to really have that safety net. As we proceed to the next slide, you're going to really kind of see, again, focusing on some of the different groups, as well as their different motivations. The number 1 most important reason was making sure that they had enough money to cover the expenses now or in retirement. Looking, for example, at that initial group, 13% of them were working to give them a sense of purpose, 13%, to have more money for retirement. But overall, like I mentioned, 92% of people said that they wanted or needed more money for retirement. As we proceed to the next slide, I've got a lot of charts, guys. This particular one is really about the interest in their benefits. So, taking a look at the group, what are they looking for? What are they needing? What are some of the things that they want from their employers? The top things really were, help in transitioning to retirement, understanding their benefits, whether that's, Social Security or the lack of Social Security, healthcare costs, Medicare, all of that, retirement plan options, helping them to maximize their benefits, helping them to understand the different withdrawal options even that they have available to them. Do they annuitize? Do they do a lump sum? Do they roll it over and do a mixture of stuff? It's really important for them to understand all of that. And then the other thing is you're going to notice in all of the research that we found that it's not just retirement that they're looking for too. They want education on their healthcare options. Healthcare is going to be one of the biggest expenses that they have in retirement, and being able to have those tools and resources and that education is really important. And then lastly, I would like to mention, there's always a request for having those online or digital tools available at their fingertips. As we proceed to the next slide, this is one is actually is most concerning, I feel like, even for myself. When we did the research and the study and everything, it was found that while people, wanted to make sure that they had enough money, they weren't thinking about, well, what happens if I'm not able to continue working as long as I want to be able to work? Or what if I need to take care of someone else or help them with their medical costs, which is going to cause me to need to work longer than I anticipated? So there's a lot of factors that come into play. And I always kind of correlate this back to myself personally, right? So my grandmother cared for her mom, so my great grandmother, right? So my great grandma had Alzheimer's, and so she cared for her. Then later in life, my grandpa also ended up with Alzheimer's, so she also ended up taking care of him. So it's just, we don't always think about, when we say disability, we don't always think about what a disability is, and it could just be diminished mental capacity as well. So it's really important to kind of think about that. 1 in 4 people in the United States has a disability. 1 in 4, that's 25%, guys. When we start talking about the age group that we're looking at, those that are 65 or older, 40% of that age group has a disability. So it's important to make sure that they have the resources and tools to be able to do the things that they need, whether that's maybe reducing the workload, but still giving the ability so that they have the money to be able to compensate for that. In addition to that, 1 in 5 individuals in the United States is a caregiver of someone with special needs. 25% are between 45 and 64 years of age, 19% are 65 or older. But I just like to always kind of think about that and making sure that we have the education and the resources to help individuals be better prepared can make a significant difference to employees. As we proceed on, I wanted to touch on some of the other key questions and topics that were brought up. So we talked about the need for providing additional lifetime income. Both the LAORP plan, as well as Teachers Retirement System, the pension plan itself, offer the employees the ability to annuitize their product. So it does give them that option to be able to annuitize, to get that lifetime income stream that has been available in the plan since inception. But we have found, at least specifically at Voya, that most folks are not necessarily annuitizing their contracts. They're taking the opportunity to roll that over to an IRA and then doing distribution options and having that conversation with the advisors is what makes the most sense for them within that IRA following separation of service. So I just wanted to kind of mention that your employees do have the ability to annuitize whether they choose TRSL or the ORP plan. In addition to that, there was a question kind of around the impact of increasing the rate from 6.2 to 8%. And then there was also potentially getting rid of that 0.05 admin fee that gets reduced from the ORP participants' accounts. So kind of some questions about that. This would actually place the ORP plan, looking back at that chart that Karen provided you guys earlier. If you looked at both the employee and the employer combined contribution amount, this would put the ORP plan for Louisiana in the top 25% of SEC schools. Now, that being said, I know y'all aren't in SEC. I know we've got a lot of different schools here. We've got a lot of different divisions. We've got a lot of different systems. So it does make it more competitive for you guys. So I just wanted to kind of go ahead and mention that as well. And then something that I think is really important as well that did get announced back in February of this year is that the ORP is no longer subject to the government pension offset or the windfall elimination. So I think that's a boost for the folks as well. So if they had like widow benefits or if they had spousal benefits not impacting. So there's a lot of different things in there too. Or if they previously worked in a place that they paid Social Security, that helps too. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Progressing on, the question might be, well, where do you go from here, right? So there's really an advantage to being able to retain those existing employees, right? We, let them work past the retirement age, gives you the ability to have, more skilled employees. It gives you the ability to have folks that are more experienced that might be able to train the younger generations as well. Couple things here that folks are looking for, making sure you're providing awareness and education on the topics that are important to them. We talked about, the planning tools, Social Security, Medicare, community resources, all of that. In addition to that, making sure they have the guidance tools that are available to them, that personalized support that's available, supporting them if they have caregivers or any opportunities to really help them remain in the workforce. So maybe that's a matter of remotely being able to work. Maybe that's the flexible hours. So, and then any other maybe programs that you could potentially offer as well. And then last on here, just, offering the health and wealth benefits. Like I mentioned, it's more than just retirement planning that they're looking for. They are looking for additional resources like information about their health care and all of that as well. As we proceed, I want to just kind of touch base on some of the stuff that Voya specifically can offer and help with. We do have a ton of transition resources available. We have checklists. We have the personalized advice and guidance through our individual advisors that are locally available to meet with your employees. And then just really being able to promote those tools. We can deliver seminars. We're happy to come out and do that. And like I said, the one-on-one individual meetings that are available with each of our financial advisors. I think really what you guys can do, being able to put the measures in place to support your older workers really is going to provide you the benefits, whether that's through retention or as well as a saving on cost of recruiting, onboarding, and training those younger generations as well. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for allowing us to participate. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And I will provide Elizabeth the actual study so she can, if she's okay with sending that out to you guys, so you'll have that as well if you're interested in more of the numbers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate it. So our final presentation for our ORP vendors is from Corbridge Financial. We have Amy Heimel and David Mills. And we turned off the camera because the camera was moving and grooving it. It was apparently at a disco party. I don't know.
Like if I move my pen, I literally was like,
It's the AI auto trucking.
I'm not, I make it stop.
So the camera is turned off. Apologies to those watching. But we are still able to view the presentation. So I'd like to go ahead and start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amy is on Zoom with us, so you can't see her, but I'm going to just assume she's there. And then in the back, I also have my divisional vice president, Chelsea Mixon, and another one of my fellow boots on the ground financial advisors, Bill Gallegos. So, I'm sad to see that there wasn't a lot of people here from last time, because last time I had a lot of fun here. Because I will tell you, I am not a VP. I am not political. I am one of the worker bees on the ground meeting with your participants every day. And so I didn't talk about plan design or expenses, except for like the questions that came my way. I was up here over 30 minutes. It was a pretty intense situation. So I plan to have a little fun with it today. Everything that Tia said and Voya, I thought it was fantastic. I'm not going to repeat any of that. It's all true. I wish last time Ed Brannigan was here. He is the director, I guess, of Teachers Retirement System as a whole, and so he also provided some nice dialogue or dialect in this presentation. So what I wanted to do is tell you what it's like from a participant standpoint and how we deal with participants. And when I say we, I don't just mean Corbridge. I mean, I know Tia Kreff does it, and I know Voya does it because I'm really good friends with some of those guys. So anyway, what we do, we sit down with people, and when they first start, we might just be talking to them about the benefits of enrolling in the supplemental plan or the differences between the pension plan and the ORP. On a side note, just so you know, we are fiduciaries. We always act in the best interest of the client. And most of the time, we're actually trying to steer them away from the ORP because most people stay longer than the 5 years to vest. And if you stay long enough, you get a pension. You don't have to worry about the annuities and all the other details. So anyway, I wanted you to know that up front. So we sit down, we talk about their options and that sort of thing, and we run a projection. We have this tool, it's called Retirement Pathfinder. Again, I know the other carriers have retirement planning software that is fantastic as well. But this Retirement Pathfinder, it tells you exactly where you stand in terms of red, yellow, and green. So if you get red, that's not good. That means at that point you have run out of money. Green means you have guaranteed income, like Social Security. So you're going to have that the rest of your life. And then yellow, that is your ORP. So that, that's the assets that you would have to produce the income that you need. And so anyway, we're able to show them the different scenarios, and we can show them literally 100 scenarios if you have the time. But so in that case, and in a way, I kind of wish I had my computer because I could show you what the difference is between a contribution rate of 6.25 going up to 8% or some number like that. I can show you what that would mean to an individual in their retirement, and it's large. So, we sit down with them, we figure out where they are. And then when they do retire, what do I do with all this money? It might look like a lot to have $1 million in an ORP plan, but that $1 million has to provide the income stream for them to live for the rest of their life. A lot of times it's 30 years. So when you break it down like that, it's not so much money. So anyway, that's kind of what we do. They mentioned the importance of having a lifetime income option in the plan. And I certainly agree with that, but I'll also say that there's ways around that. And again, that's part of my job is you tell me what the rules are and I'll figure out the best way to help you manage that. So, we use different products to help guarantee a lifetime income and that sort of thing. So, I guess that's really about it. I don't really have anything other than to tell you that we are here, boots on the ground, to help your participants. When Ed Brannigan was here last year, I made sure to tell him he got it right with the 3 carriers because we are the carriers that work with people the most. A lot of your online carriers, they'll provide a calculator, but come on. Who really goes through the trouble to click all that, and they don't know what this means, and so anyway, that's about it. I'm open for any questions. Oh, this is so much
I
easier
got a
than last year.
question. And this is, I'm gonna ask, I don't know if you're familiar with other states. And so, as you know, with ROP, it's brought up by the last presenter that we pay an administrative fee to the retirement system. Is that something that occurs in other states also?
Yes and no. I mean, some states yes, some states no, and it's not a terribly large amount. I mean, it adds up over time, but it's not a terribly large amount. It's like 0.05. So, it is something, but on a pricing standpoint, and I know I wasn't asked about this, but I talk a lot. I've never lost a plan, a situation based on pricing. You guys, and I mean teachers, I mean, they negotiate the mess out of those contracts. So they are very lean. And I couldn't see the pricing on the slides, but I'm pretty sure that you guys are very competitive in that area as well. So that's generally not the make or break thing. Last year there was a lot more meat on the bone because I don't know if you remember, but there was a window of time that ORP participants could switch to the retirement plan, the teacher's retirement plan. And I will tell you, at least 100 of my clients made that switch. And I'm just one guy. I mean, just in Baton Rouge, there's 6 of us. So, and I'm sure Bill probably had just as many. So anyway, that's the kind of help that we do. We weren't 100%. Some people didn't want to do it and they had their reasons, and Some of them were legitimate, some of them weren't, but that's life. So anyway, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
And David, this is Amy. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good morning still, everyone. I would just add to the question regarding, administrative fee, that every system has a way to recover the costs of their staff allocated to the ORP plan. So it may be a second employer contribution coming in. It may come from the pass through from the participant that the record keeper is collecting. So I just want to say that yes, there is a recovery cost for the resources paid by the system that help administer the plan, but the way that fee is recovered can vary, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, I can answer it differently.
He's shaking his head, Amy.
Okay.
I have a question. It's not necessarily a question, David, for you. Maybe it's just a comment back to the SEC comparison. I think that is very helpful as a kind of just as a benchmark of what we will be talking about. I'm just curious to know if we've looked, it might be helpful to see if there's anything data-wise like that from SREP. Simply because it would be a broader indicator. So if they have data, it might be helpful to check that out and see if they do.
Well, I know it's probably too expensive, but if there's a way we could start participating in Social Security again, that would be the key. You'd have people, jumping off buildings to come over here. So, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So as each of the presenters spoke, if y'all have any questions as we go forward from here, if you have any other comments or questions, please just let me know, or I will provide emails and contact information and reach out directly. So the next part of our meeting, you just get to hear me again, is to talk plan as well as some nitty-gritty details regarding the federal government phased retirement plan. We provided I know a little bit more information very briefly about the UT phased retirement plan. Okay.
We weren't moving enough.
That's right.
Think about it.
There's
a camera.
No.
And then now. It has been a day.
Okay, and then I also provided some additional information as it pertains to the federal government phased retirement plan. A little bit more meat and potatoes than probably necessary, but I did want to include the Federal Register that included all of the comments to the legislation that went through. So you can see where some of the thought and how the feds really went into the details of developing their plan. So that one's a little bit more of a lengthy read, but I wanted to make sure you had all of that information as well. So just briefly, we've talked about Pennsylvania last week. We also talked about Loyola University down in New Orleans. So public, private, back to public institution. As it relates to University of Texas, it is for tenured faculty only. So what they have to do, which is actually similar to the feds, is that they retire and then they come back as a part-time appointment. They have a pretty lengthy approval process. Goes from their direct supervisor to the dean, to the EVP, and then provost. And they have to have a contractually approved end date. So part and parcel to the handout includes what that contract looks like. A little bit more than I believe Pennsylvania required, as well as a sheet that says, yes, we did talk through all of the steps. Further while they are in the phased retirement plan, they cannot contribute to their DB or DC retirement programs. However, they are eligible to contribute to a separate supplemental retirement program that UT has, which is specific for retirees only. They do remain eligible for health benefits, as you see here. It's for those who are 65 and older, don't automatically have to enroll in Medicare. So I wanted to make sure that those who are in HR, I'm sure that would have been a question for y'all. The rest of us are like, okay. But most importantly, I wanted to provide this quote at the bottom, which states the recommendation for an appointment to any type of modified service shall be made only if the service of the individual is in the best interest of the university. So that's kind of the North Star for UT Austin when they're making those decisions, when it's going up the chain. That's their thought process. So we heard, Pennsylvania was kind of an automatic thing. Loyola, similarly, it seems to be at Texas, it's not necessarily an automatic approval type process. So I wanted to make sure that we just had another public system broken out, so you would have that information as well.
Can I make a comment about this one?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we applied this to our current rules here, our faculty can do that. They can retire and come back, but with our current TRSL rules, there's a lot of limitations. But Trey and I were just talking about some changes that they're looking at. Those changes could help. But that also, our last discussion was about, I think Keith was talking about OGB and how that eligibility remains. If they physically retire, they get to keep OGB. So this is like true retirement, return to work, which is what we do now, but with a lot of limitation.
Correct. Correct. And I will say, in talking to TRSL, they are going to present at our next meeting about the return to work conversation that they're having and the task force that they're having to lead up.
Yeah, that's based on Senate Study Request 1 by Senator Price. We have return to work legislation just about every year. We have 2 different laws that apply to different people depending on when you retired, and it's very confusing for retirees and employers. So we're studying that and looking to try to make it a lot less confusing, more simple, and maybe allow a little more earnings for the retirees.
So again, just wanted to provide some brief overview. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Trey, for that information. The reason why I wanted to bring up the federal one is to answer actually some of the questions that he seemed to have as it relates to OGB definitions. So within the federal government phased retirement plan, their purpose that they lay out is for knowledge management and continuity of operations, as well as enhancing mentoring and training. As we are also government employees here in the room, we are very aware that once someone retires, a lot of their institutional knowledge, which is really key to the success of so many of our organizations, can easily walk out the door, and it's hard to have to get that back and have that moving forward. So part and parcel to the feds, they were looking at it as kind of a succession plan process. Both knowing who's going to retire and when, but also ensuring that information is passed down. Their eligibility is that you have to be employed full-time for at least 3 years prior to phased retirement start date, which you're like, oh, 3 years, that's no big deal. But wait, there's more. You have to have with that at least 30 years of service, of course, if you're 55 and over, or at least 20 years if you're 60 and over. And again, as I've noted previously, not all employee positions are included within the phased retirement plan. You'll see here that most specifically, it is the law enforcement, firefighters. I know we all have nuclear materials couriers, so I thought that was important to include, as well as air traffic controllers. But part and parcel to this is that it would be like your campus safety personnel on each of your institution campuses. that in this case, would not be part of the phased retirement program. Going into benefits, the employees, of course, are working part-time. They continue to receive part of their annuity benefit. They are considered full-time employees, which is why they're able to continue to receive their health insurance, health benefits and life insurance. So that is something to consider when it comes to making those definitions for us. Similarly, sick and annual leave are accrued at the same rates as other part-time employees. So again, within the federal government, they are part-time employees, but as is defined for retirement, for health benefits and life insurance, they are considered full-time employees. So that is something to consider as we're putting together our recommendations. I do have at the bottom here, there is not a contract set time within the feds. It is open-ended, but in doing a lot of reading and looking at various memos, the assumption is that there would be an end time. That conversation would have been had with their supervisor. So although there may not be a formal contractual time limit, open-ended doesn't really mean open-ended for the next 20 years type of situation. And so I wanted to, like I said, just briefly go over both of these plans because truly what Dr. McLean and I wanted to start discussing, because I know y'all will be sad to hear this, but we only have 2 more meetings, is that we wanted to really dive into what those recommendations are going to look at. One of the topics that he and I have discussed is perhaps recognizing that we do have 4 distinct systems, and one thing to consider is perhaps putting together just a general guideline, some rails that kind of allow each of our systems to develop their own phased retirement plan that would be that way it would best meet each of your individual system needs. So with that being said, if you have any other questions as it relates to the federal phased retirement system, definitely read through the register. I know I love these things, but y'all may not. And then I'd like to go ahead and open it up for discussion and turn it over to the chair.
That's great. Yes. So where we go from here, a lot of great information for us to consider, building off the work last year. Elizabeth, thank you so much for pulling all of this together for our consideration. So I think I go back to the first meeting where I think there was some discussion of, you know, how do we at the end of the day make sure we meet the request of us to respond to all, I think it's the 10 items in particular, and how best to do that. And we had discussed, let's have some information presented to us so that we see where we are, what we have, what we need, how we need to consider that. And then as Elizabeth just described, we do have the different systems that we were thinking perhaps we begin to frame up if we kind of wave our magic wand or rule the world, right? What our thoughts or recommendations might be from an individual systems perspective, but then also that we come together overall to provide as much information as possible in our recommendation. So just to add on to what Elizabeth was saying, that's kind of where our head was. So open to thoughts and comments, questions on that and how we get there.
I have other slides for the other items on our to-do list, but I thought start with the phased retirement portion of our task force.
I'll speak for LCTCS just because the room is quiet. I don't see a phased retirement system as being that beneficial for us. We don't have tenure faculty. 65% of our faculty are adjunct. So I don't see it being that big of a deal for us. I can understand for the other institutions with tenure faculty, with researchers, I can see that possibly being a great benefit.
with that side.
See that this is really an option for institutions. So if they can't work that out, they don't go forward, so they go on whether they do participate and to what degree. If it were forced, fine benefit, so to speak, that could be more of an issue for institutions. But in this case, it's optional. It's just another tool in the toolbox to retain a
Right.
member of the faculty. Appropriate.
From my standpoint, it looks like different systems do it different ways. It seems like Pennsylvania, they let their ORP people take money. The defined benefit participants had to keep contributing. Texas, it looks like you have to retire and you're treated as a rehired retiree. And you have the federal where you're receiving part of your defined benefit and part of your salary. So from my standpoint, I would want to know what y'all would be interested in and how we could fit that into what we do and maybe work with Kenny on cost. So that's kind of the portion of this that I'm interested in.
And we only have Kenny for 2 more meetings, so if we want some data run, we kind of need to let them know what that's gonna look like sooner than later. So if we want to go ahead with that thread, I know LSU, Southern, y'all haven't spoken up yet.
So I would like to take under consideration the current hiring trends in higher education as it relates to faculty. Some of the people we are hiring now, and some people do stay and they achieve tenure, and then the next thing you know, they moved on. And it's really generational, honestly. Younger professors are not committed to long-term at many universities, and I think that has to be a part of this conversation.
I think we can address that when we talk about increasing the ORP and that kind of stuff too.
I mean, I'd like to hear from our faculty of kind of what their sentiments are around this, because I know from an HR data standpoint, we know how many we have that are in that approaching retirement eligibility, who are retirement eligible and who are past that point, that are leaving and coming back. We also know, and some of the retirement systems talked about this, is the sentiments around why people are choosing to continue. So yes, I think it's a great tool, or potentially a great tool. I just don't know how many people are actually going to take advantage of that, but I'd like to hear the faculty sentiments around that.
Well, I mean, I think for the faculty, this would be really helpful. I mean, one of the issues we're having is as our teaching burdens are increasing within our departments, right? So enrollments keep going up, there's a need for courses, and we can't hire to meet that as much. I think if we can retain our senior faculty to teach, but then kind of release some of the research expectations on them, I think that would be helpful in keeping them around in a teaching capacity, and then also free up some of our younger faculty who are more research active, maybe induce them with course releases, as we're trying to do in some of our colleges, to be able to get that grant money, but then backfill it with faculty we already have who are experienced. And I think the other benefit then is we can use tenured faculty to teach, which helps in our recruitment of students, because then you're not getting adjuncts or instructors, right? So I think externally that looks attractive. I mean, from everything I've heard so far, I mean, I think the faculty, at least at A&M, would find this attractive. I mean, I think some of the other campuses in the system have different profiles, but I think for us, this would really help address the need on the teaching side, and then have spillover effects throughout the rest of the faculty.
I want to add to the 3 of us are all at A&M along with Tommy. I think when we get faculty who are mid-career, and Dan, correct me if I'm not correct about this, but there is a lot of conversation about no Social Security, and maybe I should move someplace else where the benefits are better, because they're starting in mid-career to start thinking about what if at the other end. I see this as a small piece, but a potential part of a retention. People thinking, well, okay, they're on Social Security, but I can get the phased I know I was talking with a faculty member the other day who was confused, as I am a little bit, about who can return to work when you're finished. So, you know, if I retire when I'm 55, because I can do that, could I still come back and teach if they needed me? And this person teaches in a niche field. So, I mean, I think the more of those things that we can get figured out as part of this process, I think for us, it would serve as a retention for people. Maybe not at the very end of the, but these mid-career people who are very portable. They can go other places. So, would you agree that that's, and Nikki, I mean, losing people who are Social Security is better there, contributions are better at other places.
Yeah, I mean, especially given the salary disparities we're seeing, I think the benefits package matters a lot. So if you can sort of see some options in the latter half of your career at a time where maybe you are more mobile, I think it would help with retention.
Tommy will kick me for this, but I think the retention piece of this, we're far greater of having retention with the change and the contribution than.
That's true.
So,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, that was my point.
I guess I was assuming that that wasn't going to happen, so, you know, but.
Nikki, there are reasons why we don't normally put you next to your.
You know.
And we did say if we could wave our magic wands, what would we
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
what could we put out there to be considered, so.
I also think the enhanced sick leave would incentivize some faculty members to participate as well.
Seems that the funding of the program and the program itself are two different discussions. It is, could get expensive. A lot of our institutions are already strapped now budgetarily. And so find the funding for it, that'd be great. There's definitely a need. You were at a point where you decide on your retirement, you look at your ORP account, you see how much money you have, and if there would be some additional contributions to that, I would think some faculty might want to stay a little longer to shore up their account. It's just funding it, that's the major challenge for the CFO or person.
So are y'all asking for us to talk about guardrails around here? For instance, I would assume we put a guardrail up to say you wouldn't go into this unless you're fully eligible for health benefits, retiree health benefits. And we wouldn't allow them to get that during this phased time, right? I would also, I know you said that the federal government didn't have a timeline, but I would definitely think we want a duration. I mean, it seems like 3 years is the number we heard the most, but we don't want them to stay in there forever, right? We want to have them 3 years in there. Or whatever, I mean, that's what I'm suggesting out there. And then it sounds like, some of them doesn't, I guess Texas doesn't allow them to be in their retirement, but I mean, I would think that our faculty would like to still be able to contribute something into the retirement, maybe at a lower, as the percentage of the effort goes down, it'd be at that lower rate. And then the question around, would they want to also be able to pull some of their retirement while they're in there to supplement the reduction in salaries? And all of that can be different at each, not only the system, but even at campus, because we have a wide disparity with different campuses with different systems. But I would guess that the purpose of this task force was to have some kind of guardrails around that they could vote on something.
Yeah,
I would caution against allowing too much variability in the retirement piece, whether contributions or benefits between campuses.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's could be an overall guardrails, but especially with the the healthcare, I know OGB and LSU First even would be worried about that and then having those. But yeah, I mean, I think we can have overall guardrails, but then have some flexibility amongst the systems, maybe even amongst the campuses within the systems.
yeah, you can certainly, to Kenny's point, to your point as well, Tommy, the flexibility could come from the duration.
Yeah.
So instead of, it may be 3 years at one of your institutions, whereas 5 years at another, depending upon, system needs and informational transfer. But as it relates to, continuing to receive health benefits, I think that would be the guardrail there, you know, that we would have to maintain. Within that conversation, and then similar to retirement and the definitions that Trey was saying, you know, let's make sure those are the guardrails, but you know, maybe some of the other aspects to it could be a little different. You know, is it 50%, 75%, you know, is it 50%, then 30%, then 20, but you know, those aspects I think would be open-ended, dependent upon either your system or institutional needs.
And then the eligibility for return to work post phase retirement. I mean, to me, that's $1 million question too. Because we have so many returns. So would they be eligible to do that? And if so, are there guardrails around that as well?
You probably have returns because you don't have phased though, right? That's the only option.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I mean, we have people that are coming back full time
Mhm.
for eons.
Yeah.
So, I think there might be a handful, but by and large, I mean, we've got a lot of returns. And I think it's because people truly do not have the means to fully retire.
The group that, I think it was either Texas Austin or it was the federal government where they retire and then they come back. Was that?
That was
So-
Texas.
That was
Yeah.
Texas. So when they retire, do they go on retirement health benefits? Like, do they go on Medicaid or, you know, whatever? And
Speak to that. The way the Medicare works is if you're physically active, it's better for you to have just A and
Yeah.
not B because your OGB's primary. You'd be paying for something that you're not using. So we always advise for people to not pick up B until they, excuse me, physically stop working altogether.
Okay.
Yeah, there's certainly a cost to that would not be beneficial to the employer.
Other discussion points. Very got some very informative considerations.
I think as Kenny noted and Trey noted, I think that's really where we'll have to figure out what those starting points are. And really dive into what that's going to look like. If you want to go back and talk more to your faculty to see, you know, what their specific needs and wants are and bring that for conversation so that we can ensure that, you know, whatever is specific for your institutions is right. Are there any other faculty who would like to speak to our HR and CFOs while they're here? Okay, you know, I call out people and used to be a professor, so I'm happy to call names. But I won't do that today. Okay, if there's no other conversation or feedback, if y'all would like to move forward to the next topic.
I have one question though, just because so is the primary goal part-time work? Or a structured retirement date, right? Because those are different designs and how you would want to go about that, right? So if your general intent is to get somebody to work 50% of the time or whatever it is, that's gonna look very different than if you just want to have a more structured end date in mind, right? So I think understanding what is most important from that perspective would probably help guide how you would want to build this out. And then I don't know what in-service distribution issues come into play with like the way the federal government set theirs up. Because I know return to work, right, whole intent is a actual break in service. So, you know, from a lot of our conversation, it's sort of 1 year break in service, which doesn't quite seems to miss the point of what a lot of these people are doing. So I think there's some, I don't know what kind of legal issues there are from that perspective either. So.
Yeah, for us, so basically the IRS says you have to have a legitimate separation in order to actually retire. You can't have generally in agreement to go back to work. I don't know how the phased retirement works exactly. As far as in-service distributions, they are allowed if the plan allows it. There are some parameters, and I'd have to ask our tax counsel exactly what those are, but it is permissible.
Are there any questions that, and I'm not legal counsel, so I want to put that out there right now. But are there any questions that you would like me to try and find answers to or seek out additional information as it relates to some of the comments that have been brought forth already? I think each of the HR leaders in the room will know how many, as Nikki stated, y'all know how many are on that retirement list. So if you go back and speak to faculty, if they're interested in coming back to work, which I would guess would probably be where the faculty focuses, whereas I would guess for our CFOs and our HR persons in the room, it would be that structured retirement date. So now we're on potentially opposite sides of the room. So that would also have to be part and parcel to the conversation.
Yeah, so perhaps for the next meeting, we can summarize the input that we've received, and could we capture those eligibility number just for order of magnitude to see what we're talking about. I know that from a CFO standpoint, one of the things obviously that hit me last meeting very much was the very low level of participation in this type of a program, specifically phased retirement, and the perhaps a nice option, but it's just not that heavily utilized and leveraged. So just on that particular piece of it.
Well, then, with that, I just ask if all the HR leaders could tell me how many retirees you got on your, what I know is a lengthy Excel sheet. So that would be helpful. And perhaps also in, who's gonna retire, who's eligible for retirement within the next 5 years, but also who's been eligible for retirement for, multiple years and in some cases decades, so. Yes, sir.
I have one thing to think about, and it comes from your discussion about how do you apportion what a professor does, they can teach more, do less research perhaps. Would each system want to define what the 50% would be? How would that work in terms of guardrails? It's easy to count classes, right?
Sure.
Half as many classes as whatever, but research is much more nebulous. I had a research project that just got published across a 10-year period. So that's a little harder to define in terms of where I portion my time. And then that varies across the different institutions because some have doctoral programs and some don't. And, that would be a different type of dynamic. So I would imagine that either we do something where there's flexibility in terms of each institution or system define what 50% might be like, or if there's flexibility with how that might work, but that's a consideration.
Any other comments or concerns? All right. Thank you. Moving forward. Okay, so the next topics are the contribution rate and accrued leave enhancement recommendations. I brought back this slide again, so you can just see what the cost is. Although I'm sure it's burned into the brain of our CFOs in the room. But based on the conversation that you heard from our RP vendors, noting the Social Security is an option at the other states, not here. To that point, I do not see that being an option within the future. So I just don't even think that would be on the table for discussion. So keep that in mind. This was a recommendation that we put forth from the task force last year. And in fact, I brought up the language, in the report just to reference it, and I apologize for not putting it on a slide for us. But, within that, we had, essentially two recommendations as part and parcel to this one, which is one, moving it from the 6.2 to the 8%. So we strongly recommend to amend Louisiana revised statute to establish a minimum employer contribution rate equal to the employee's required contribution of 8%. This adjustment would not only align Louisiana with best practices in retirement funding, but also enhance the state's ability to attract and retain top talent in a highly competitive job market. So it goes to the point of exactly what we've already spoken about here. The second part of the recommendation was acknowledging the constitutional amendment passed as Act 1 of the 2024 third extraordinary session to be voted on by the state populace, seeks to liquidate various trust funds and to have those payments and those funds be recognized and retained by the institutions so that a portion of these savings be used to help offset the increase of employer contribution rate. As we know, Representative Bakala did put this recommendation forward, but again, being very mindful of the cost and being very mindful of his fiscal responsibility, that was removed as part of the legislation in order to ensure that the other recommendations were put forth. Again, I want to make note that should we go forward with this, there's, as we know, that constitutional amendment did not pass. It is back on to be voted in April. We can, certainly make that request, but it would not necessarily be a guarantee. So I do just want to put that out there. That's not to say that each of your systems can't individually choose to increase their rate, should they do that out of their own good heart. Not everyone jump at once.
That can be included in the collective
But that
recommendation.
we are happy we are happy to just, put that forward. Should that be a recommendation? There's nothing to stop the employers for increasing the contribution rate. With the exception of there's of course a cost to it. But I know some of us here at the table have already stated that would be something to help retain and faculty and would be something to use, especially for those mid-career professionals, as Dr. Cassidy. So, and I think that's where you also noted, ensuring that we retain some of those faculty members. So I'm happy to open that up for conversation as well.
I think we all would be for it, but if they do, retention, it'd be great if we can give everybody a 10% salary increase also.
Yeah.
If the legislature would support us with that. But the issue is the cost of it. So there's a lot of different ways we can retain faculty and staff. Most of it is very pricey.
I'm not looking at it just as retention, I'm looking at it as fairness. Your ORP participants are not getting the same benefit that your TRSL participants are getting. So this is only getting them partially up to speed with what their counterparts have already offered.
Depends on your investments, right? We're a lot better than the teachers.
They could be, but in the end,
Yeah, I understand, no, I'm
Yeah.
all for it, but there's a cost to it, so if we can put a guardrail around to say, if we're allocated the dollars, again, to go in with the money up without getting them dollars, but.
And perhaps the guardrail would be a prorated increase. Not jump from 6.2 to 8% immediately, perhaps jump from 6.2 to 6.8 and, you know, bring that in within a set amount. Yeah.
We
Still
find
a
it from the
cost.
legislature.
There's still a cost, but it wouldn't be as much, you know, I mean, you wouldn't be looking at 11 million immediately.
So correct me though if I'm wrong. If the funds that we are paying toward unfunded pension liability were not being paid, would that not be a potential funding source to cover
Give it
that?
back to us.
That's what I'm saying,
That's,
but I'm.
that's my net, that's another slide.
Well, we're talking about I mean, that is a potential funding source. So if I think what I'm hearing is we wouldn't be having this conversation if Social Security was on the table. In
It's not on
some
the
respects, it's not on the table. So if that's pointed out, that since it's not on the table, we have to have the next option of discussion. And this is what it would be, and then the funding opportunities, considerations around it. I think that's certainly a fair piece of the equation.
Sure, the request would be out of the constitutional amendment that's going forward in April. It would be the request for this, along with retaining the UAL savings, which are set around $80 million. So that would be an additional $90 million to be retained by, or $80 million retained that is already in our budgets presently within the higher education, and then the additional $11 million. But a lot that can be done with $90 million by some of our other fellow state agencies and
Sure.
you know, they do a lot of great work as well. Do we want to move forward from here doing a a prorated rather, or all at once, or are there any thoughts at all as to how we would like to approach this task force conversation?
CFO perspective, of course, gradual increase better,
Mhm.
but for the faculty, how it will boost all our profits. Part.
So the recommendation essentially, would it not be, we want to get there
Mhm.
sooner rather than later, immediate if possible. It's got to be funded, and here are the options of funding. And so we would say that versus not doing anything, we would want a phased approach. And I think Gina's point of that baseline being the same is another very important of the discussion.
All right, any other comments or questions? Before moving on? All right, so the next one talks about the approved leave. Can you hit something for the door, please? Sorry about that, no problem. So this is just another slide from previous. I think I got it right too. But I know you'll correct me if I wrote it incorrect. As it relates to the accrued leave enhancements. So I open this up for conversation as well. Trey, is there anything you want to talk to or impacts?
So is this a leave enhancement for the ORP participants or for every?
I think the initial discussion was ORP participants being able to use the leave in some kind of way to bank it. Because, so I think the conversation came about because TRSL and Lasers members, they get to receive the leave payouts that we all pay out to everyone. But they also get to convert some of that time to their actual benefit. ORP just loses it. They get the leave payout and they get nothing converted in any fashion. So they get lesser of a benefit at retirement.
It would be permissible to, if you paid out some leave, to let them contribute on it. I think I mentioned this last time. If they contribute, then the employer would also be contributing at their percentage. And the other issue is more of a operational concern. Once someone is terminated and we receive their last contributions, we can't take any more for that ORP person unless they're re-enrolled. So it would be a timing issue for the universities of, you'd have to pay out that leave with their last earnings and report that to us at the same time as their final earnings. But that's something that I would assume could be done.
What is the current? It's 300 of annual and what of sick?
200.
It's 200 of sick.
Okay.
It's not up there, but it
Yes,
is
it is.
200 of sick. Sick.
And so what were you talking about, maybe increasing that payout for ORP members?
Either increasing the payout, doing, I mean, various kinds of ways, whatever. So that they
Something
get
to the
more.
equivalent, right?
Right.
Something.
Well, equivalent's gonna be a lot for some. I mean, if you're looking at a whole year conversion of a benefit. I think currently the lead payouts are by statute.
Yes.
So what could it be? Like what? Considerations, not recommended considerations. What could they be? What could be examples of what it could be that it's not today?
I would have to read more on that, but I will say we are seeing, you and I have had a lot of conversations lately about this. We're seeing more and more, particularly faculty, that are taking off large lump time in order not to lose it because they don't have the ability to convert it.
Right.
So I think trying to find some type of happy medium, I don't know that off the top of my head. We could probably brainstorm and bring some type
Yeah.
of something to be considered, but people are kind of de facto doing their own phased retirement using their leave now where they're not engaged in
Right.
work activities and they're taking off 500-600 hours.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at that. But if I pull the numbers, that might be happening.
Jane and I have had a lot of conversations in recent weeks about this, that we're seeing more and more. We're actually going through an audit right now of looking to see what's happening holistically across the A&M campus. Hadn't even touched the other campuses.
Definitely happened in the southern system.
So they're doing it on their own. They're figuring it out.
Yes.
So in effect, they're taking the leave,
Right.
and then it comes to they want to retire and they want their 192 hours in addition to the previous year, what all the leave they've taken the previous year, which in one case would have added up to 500.
And 192 hours is y'all's
That's our
policy.
cap, yeah.
Yeah.
I suggest we take Nikki up on the offer of, if I heard that correctly, of HR working together to come up with.
I think we could say, this is what's happening at our respective campuses, and in a perfect world, what would that look like?
Right.
As I'm trying to figure out what would the incentive for the faculty be? Allow them to take that leave, or would it be instead of doing 500 hours, we pay them 700 hours?
Potentially, I mean,
And then you're talking about not just OR, are we just talking about looking at ORP because they can't use it, or are you gonna do that for all?
personally, I mean, my thoughts are, I think we need to look at all of it to reconcile what should be happening. But I know what's happening on our campus right now is they're not engaged for semesters on end because they're taking leave, so they're not using it. So they're not productive and we're holding a position behind.
Significant cost to the.
And we're paying somebody else to do the work.
Yes.
pay one way or the other.
I was gonna say we pay, yeah.
Yeah, what's the opportunity cost?
Correct.
Shall I comment on that one, what have been discussed? Well, in my school, the faculty who took this kind of leave, they are not productive, all right? And we end up hiring adjunct faculty to teach and to cover those courses. So I think it would be good, if the Board of Regents find some solution. So that the institution, you can use, I would say, the resource, appropriately instead of just paying salary to somebody else, for a couple of years while the person is not providing any service.
There was something on an earlier slide here at the bottom, but it has to be beneficial to the university or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was on the
Texas.
Yeah, yeah. I thought y'all would appreciate
Yes,
that. So, and again, that goes to the approval process. That would also be part and parcel to the guardrails that, that we're setting forth.
Was the University of Texas plan the one where they could only do it 1 year at a time? Do it 1 year and then it has to be approved for an additional year.
I think
Oh,
so.
you don't
I've
get
read a
it.
lot of them, so I apologize.
That one was like a review annual kind of consideration to make sure that the circumstances essentially
Mhm.
stay the same.
Yeah. Right. We want to move to the next topic on our list. Is just for future meeting. But I brought this back for y'all. So, as requested, this includes the redistribution. But I do want to make note, this is not final, this is just illustrative. Should the UAL payment, remain as it looks right here, that would potentially, look at that, I put 81, because it's 81, I didn't change my heading, so apologies. But it's forecasted at about 81 million right now, so that would be the funding that would be retained.
Yes, can you walk the group through this slide again?
Sure.
Just so that we're all on the same page of what this represents.
Sure. So, as those of us in the room are aware, it is the intent of the constitutional amendment that once those funds are swept, to use those dollars to pay off the UAL debt. Those funds would then be used for the K through 12 faculty for their teacher pay raises. And the remaining of those dollars would be is about 81 million as it pertains to higher education. Those dollars, once they are swept, they do go straight back into state general fund. So it is the will of the legislature as to how those dollars would be reappropriated. For higher education, our amount, like I noted, is 81 million. There's not at this time any type of statement saying we want to use this 81 million for XYZ for higher education. So it is our understanding that it would go back to the general fund, and again, as I stated, the legislature could reappropriate as they see fit. We of course have asked, the Board of Regents has asked for it to remain within our higher education institutions, and that would be, bless you, that would be the redistribution of how, or could be the redistribution of how it looks like.
So in this table, the UAL payment column, is that what currently is expected to be paid?
Yes.
And then if TRSL gets these funds, the UAL payment attributable to higher ed would be $81 million less than the 244 million.
Correct.
Yes.
Because each system is making these payments as we make payroll.
Yes.
Because of the unfunded accrued pension liability, right? And so since it's unfunded, it's an expense to each institution. And so just, very simply talking about it, it would be if an LCTCS institution, like I'm at, would no longer have to pay that unfunded liability, it would be a significant decrease in the expense that we are paying every 2 weeks. And so to the extent that was paid off and no longer there, then that could be an example of a way to fund the 6.2 to 8% increase, because it is much less than the amount we are paying every 2 weeks for the unfunded pension liability.
Correct.
So I mean, if the unfunded pension liability, for example, were to be bonded out or funded some other way, that would be presumably a whole lot less expensive than what, I mean, if our institution could bond out our specific piece, then that certainly would reduce our expenses such that we could then flip those dollars to an investment in current people versus having to pay for the unfunded liability piece. So that's, to me, why this piece, at least as an example of a potential funding source, is so important, just as an example for consideration, because it would have a significant benefit on several fronts.
I'll just point out, pension obligation bonds come with a whole host of their own.
Again, waving that wand, right? Waving that wand. All I'm saying that these are those dollars. Appreciate that.
Trey couldn't help it.
We
but
can both
clarifying.
wave.
Again, the recommendation from last year's task force was that higher education would retain those savings, and within the redistribution, part of it would be set aside to fund that $11 million increase from the 6.2 to 8%. I did state earlier that there's also the option of the legislature appropriating the additional cost, so it would be retained, we could retain the 81 and then also receive on top of that an $11 million to fund that. I know, everybody laugh at me.
Put them out.
Positive, I'm a positive person too. I do not speak for the will of the legislature, but I do know that they are very fiscally mindful. So. But they wanted to provide this information as well, since it was asked, and
Thank you.
I had not included the redistribution, and I haven't.
Back to future meeting date?
Yes, sorry, to the future meeting date. Oh,
Real quick, well, I know so close. The resolution also talked about the administration fee being transferred from employee to employer. And we didn't discuss that, but I think that's still a recommendation that our group should discuss.
It didn't, somebody mentioned that one of our first meetings, it's already done.
Yeah.
Partially.
Partially.
It's partially done.
Partially, starting fiscal year 27. So July 1st, 26. Right now, it's a 0.05% fee. It'll be employers will be responsible for half of that. Employees be responsible for that. And if their fee were to go up, basically the employees will be capped at 0.025. So if that fee ever were to increase past 0.05, that increase would fall on the employers. So as it is now, the employees will still retain the 0.025% regardless of what the rate. Now, if the rate dropped, then the employees pay half and the employer pays half. So if it were to drop to 0.04, it would be 0.02.
That's beginning in fiscal year 27.
Yes,
So July 26th.
July 26th.
And that's the only thing it's not prorated and eventually go away.
No,
That's all it does.
it's only if the fee goes up, the cost for the employers would go up. But not the employee.
Right, does the admin fee go up?
So it started at,
Regular basis, or, I know it's gone down.
it started at 0.1%, which I think is what the lasers fee is. And then it was dropped to 0.05. It's really just something we have to look at every year, depending on what overall key payroll is and the costs.
Who makes the determination of that? Is it legislative approval
Clear SL4.
process? So it doesn't have to go to the legislature.
No, it does not.
Gina, thanks for bringing that up, and Trey for that explanation. Gina, is there anything else?
No.
We good? We good? Now I lost my feet. Oh, there we go.
There, I brought it back.
So future dates, next meeting, Wednesday, October the 15th. I would suggest strongly be here early to get a parking place, so you don't have to Uber from some other lot somewhere. And then also Wednesday, November the 12th, is the following meeting, so please make sure those are on your calendars. And our goal is to, correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, not add any additional meetings.
That
to
is
the schedule.
Correct.
That's what we're working toward.
We did add, I will in full, we did add one to our previous task force. But we are trying not to do that, but we made them. We have that November 12th date early enough so that if we do need to come back and have one final review. It is the intention, at the next meeting, we'll have some of the recommendations written down, and passed around for review. So y'all can take that into consideration. So that hopefully by November 12th, we'll have a firm, recommendation. Report rather.
All right. Assuming there's no additional other business.
I did want to make one correction to something David from corporate said. Ed Brannigan, if any of y'all work with him, he's manager of our employer services department, who is the department that deals with the employers and the vendors for the org.
Very good. You can all see what's on the screen. Where do we go from here? Accept a motion to adjourn. Okay, second. Adjourn. O'Rourke, second. Fuller. All right, no objections?